Okay, well, hello everybody. I suppose um, my name is Chris, and I've been thinking about making these type of videos for a while, and here it is, New Year's Eve in Ireland, and I've decided to actually just commit and go ahead and give it a go. All right, so if there's a few little rough edges, I just ask you to bear with me, but our intent is good, and basically what I'm trying to do is uh, over a series of talks or videos is really just to introduce people to the skills that you require to go to the mountains, whether it be the summer, whether it be the winter, whether it be the Alps. Mainly, I'm going to be focusing on the mountain walking side as distinct from technical climbing with ropes, gear, ice axes, etc. All right. So, just a little bit about me. My history is, I think I've been basically operating in the mountains in one form or another since the 1970s. So I'm a long time around. I'm many years doing this. I was in the military for 15 years. Lots of time on the ground in all sorts of weather, mountain environments, low-lying environments, wet environments. But the big thing about the military that it teaches you how to look after yourself in bad weather over extended periods of time. Okay, so a lot of us go out for a walk. You know, we're back after 4 or 5 hours, but military exercise to go on for 3 or 4 days. You could be out in the rain, you're down in a trench. So it becomes much more critical about how you look after yourself, that you don't get hypothermia, that you don't dehydrate, that you don't get trench foot. Anyway, so when I left the military, then I was always into hill walking even when I was into the military, but then I progressed and I started technical climbing, rock climbing, alpinism, trips to Scotland. I did all the mountain skills courses, I did the mountain leader courses, I was a qualified rock climbing instructor. I've led groups, I've ran mountain skills courses, I've trained people, I've done lots of different things, right? My current focus is really just doing solo walks by myself, whether they be in Scotland, Wales, England, Ireland, that type of thing. I used to be a technical climber, you know, winter climbing, climbing frozen waterfalls, very technical, very sort of, I suppose, on the sharp edge, as they say in the game. But I've a bit more risk averse now. I'm a bit older, so I'm really just confining my activities to technical walking, winter walking, summer walking, etc. Okay, so that's enough about me. So today I'm just really going to focus on what I carry, what I wear if I'm going out for a winter trip. Okay, so let's just talk about what do we mean by winter. Now, at the moment in Ireland, I think today is very, very mild, it's about 12 degrees. This is New Year's Eve, so like we're not dealing with winter conditions. If you go to Scotland, go up to the Cairngorms, I'm sure there's winter conditions that exist there at the moment, okay? Occasionally in Ireland, we do get winter conditions that don't come very often, okay? So if you want to experience winter conditions, you know, and you live in Ireland, you're probably heading to Scotland, and I've been over there many times, Cairngorms, other areas of Scotland, to experience the whole full winter experience. So, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through, first of all, what I actually wear, right? And then the second part, we're going to talk about what I actually carry, all right? And some of these items, obviously, it depends on the conditions. I mean, if there's no snow and ice, I'm not going to bring an ice axe. If it's a bit milder, I'm not going to maybe bring as much clothing, all right? So, this is just a guide. What you're trying to do all the time here is you're trying to strike a balance between having exactly what you need, not letting your clothing and your equipment get too heavy, and you know, staying reasonably comfortable and having a margin of safety that if something happens, this is the key. I always have the capability of staying on the mountain for at least 24 hours. So I go out, I'm planning to go out for 5 or 6 hours, 7 hours, but I have the capability, if something goes wrong, something happens to me, or I come across somebody else that gets injured and decide to stay with them and help them, I have the capability to stay sheltered, a bit of extra food, some extra clothing for 24 hours until the emergency services get there. So that's the objective, right? So I'm going to keep moving along. This is going to be quite quick. Future videos, what I'm going to do is maybe going to be a bit more detail about some of this gear and some navigation and looking after yourself and fitness. But today is just really quick overview, winter gear, what you bring, what do I wear? Okay, so starting off, right, legs. So the first thing is, there's a couple of options here. What I tend to wear most of the time is, these are close-fitting tracksuits, right? Now, I think they're made by Ron Hill. I have them years. They're a great bit of kit. They don't restrict your knee movement. What I do is, if it's mild, I wear one pair, and if it's warm, I have two pairs. You can see that there. Just okay. And you don't overheat. Okay, keeps you nice and cozy, and they're really good. They got some draw cords there. So that's what I use on my legs. All right. Now, again, sticking with the legs, if the wind chill goes up, right, get to the tops, wind chill up, then I put on these lightweight pair of trousers, right? So these here are really just my go-to for windproofness. I have two of these, right? One is, if it's raining, I keep the nice new fresh pair because I want to preserve that repellency as long as possible. These here are old, they're battered, but they keep the wind off. So if it's not raining, this is my go-to. If it's raining, I go for the other fresher, newer pair. Okay. Now, sometimes in the winter, if it's very, very cold, if I'm doing more of a technical walk, a technical climb, I go for something like this. And these guys here, you know, they got the braces, salopettes, you know, they got pockets, they're thicker, they got side zips, they're actually Gore-Tex, but they're so old, and they've been so many places, they've been torn and ripped and mended. They're not waterproof anymore, but they are windproof, and they're quite warm. So this would be an exceptional bit of kit that I might wear, but it depends on the wind chill, all right, and the conditions. So that's salopettes. Okay, so going to the upper body. First off, base layer, have a merino wool, tight fitting merino wool base layer, all right? So the general rule is, when you're layering, is that the first layer needs to be tight, the next one a bit looser. As you move out, each one should get a little bit looser for two reasons. One is that you trap more air, which gives you more insulation. The second one is that if you have a jacket and you're going to put it over 4 layers, it needs to be big enough to still be comfortable and not too tight. Okay, so base layer, merino wool. Thing about merino wool is, when it gets damp or wet, it still has insulation properties. Okay, not as much of it's dry, but it still has good properties and good wicking as well. All right, so that's the base layer. What I do is then the next layer, now again depends on the conditions. If I think I can get away with it, I might just walk in a base layer and a hard shell, right? If there's severe wind chill, if it's raining, it just depends on the conditions. The next layer that I put on would be a light shirt. Now this is by Sprayway. It's light, very good wicking, but it does actually keep you warm, all right? So I don't like wearing anything that's too heavy when I'm actually active, all right? So that's my next layer, basically sometimes referred to as the mid layer. Okay, so for most of the time, I'd have a base layer, mid layer, and then all I'd have then would be a hard shell. That's it, all right? Exceptional cases, if it got very, very cold, I might put on another insulating layer over the mid layer, right? So this here is a sort of a thicker fleece, nice high collar, keeps you nice and warm. The thing about anything that you keep on reserve for clothing, whether it be gloves or socks or your insulating layer, make sure it's high impact. So in other words, if you're going to carry a pair of socks, make sure they're a good, thick, warm pair, okay? If you're going to carry an emergency coat, make sure it really is going to do the job, that it's going to have a high impact. Same with this top here. It's much thicker than the other one, the blue one, and if I decide to wear it, I'm going to get that immediate benefit, okay? All right? So, the next thing then is our shell. Now, I've two go-to shells, right? I've got a light one, which is a Montana jacket, and then I've got a North Face hardcore kind of a Summit winter snow type jacket, which can be worn in the rain as well. Okay, so first off, it depends on the conditions. Generally dry, maybe a few light showers. I'm going to go for something like this, which is quite breathable. Okay, quite breathable, quite light, quite compact. All right, it's got a couple of pockets. Pockets are always handy for jackets. Put your snacks in, put your map and compass in, whatever. Okay, so always nice little hood. Thing about hoods, I won't go into jackets in detail today, but hoods, if you're going to buy a jacket, make sure the hood fits. It cinches tight around, because if a strong wind is going to blow into your face, certain jackets, it can lift the hood, which, you know, obviously is no good. So always check that the hood fits really well and cinches down, right? So that's the light shell, okay? More hardcore conditions, very severe wind chill, precipitation, whether it be rain or snow or whatever. I'm going to go for something like this. So this is, again, I won't do a full review on it, but it's a longer jacket. It's very breathable. It's got that Future Light membrane, which replaces Gore-Tex in the North Face range. You know, it's got a really good hood. It's got lots of pockets. It's got pockets inside and outside for all your kit. All right, and that's very important when you're on the hill. A long day in the hill, you want to keep making progress. You don't want to, every time you need something, you don't want to have to stop, take off your bag, root in your bag, get it. You know, carry stuff. First line, let's call it first line kit. Carry it on yourself, on your jacket, like map, compass, snacks, hat, gloves, that type of thing, right? So again, I'm not going to get in too much detail, but good hard shell, something that's going to do the job. So this is like extreme conditions. This is my go-to. This is my you know, last line, if you like. So I just make a choice at the beginning of the day. It's going to be the light one or the heavy one. All right, boom. So that's that. Headgear. Right, so the first thing is, when we start off any walk, any expedition in the winter, the first thing, you get out of the car, it's windy, it's cold. What's the first inclination is to start loading up, right? Start loading up with layers. Okay, so you walk 10 minutes, you overheat, just stop, you have to take it all off. So that is just not efficient, right? The rule is start cold, right? Because after 10, 20 minutes of walking, especially uphill, even if you're lightly dressed, you're going to generate a lot of body heat, and you're going to get to that optimum temperature on the move that you're actually looking for. All right, so the goal here is not to overheat, not to sweat out your layers, okay, especially in winter, because once the layers get sweated out, you get to the top, the intensity of your activity then drops, then the wetness, the sweat, everything just cools you down really fast. So you don't want that. Now, what I would say is, you can never stay completely dry, but you want to minimize that sweating out, right? So how do you do that? You just dress light, even if you start off feeling cold, right? So headgear, I always usually start off with just something around the ears, right? Don't wear a full hat, it's gonna overheat me. So something around the ears. When I get to the tops, when the really hard grafting work is over, I'm going along the ridge, going along the tops, come back down, then I'll switch to a hat. All right. Winter, I have a light balaclava. That's my go-to kind of balaclava in the winter. Don't wear this in the rain, because what happens is the rain hits it, it soaks up the rain, and then the wetness spreads back over your whole head. Your head gets wet. So don't use it in the rain, but for windy, dry, cold conditions, it's excellent. So that's just a light balaclava. All right, keep that in your pocket, whip it out when you get to the top, put it on. Okay, this baby here, one thing about winter is that the sun doesn't rise very high in the sky. What you need to do is you need to bring some sort of a peaked hat on sunny days, because it's very annoying if you're walking into the sun, because it's so low, it's almost shining directly into your face. All right, so you know, not a critical item, but definitely that peak there, very very useful to keep the sun out of your eyes. What I do not recommend is I've done it myself, is wearing these type of peak caps when it's raining under your hood, because all that happens is this gets wet, and then the rain spreads by capillary action all the way back, right? Your head gets wet then, and then you get cold. So try and use the beak on the rain jacket rather than using a peak cap. All right, that's just a little tip. Again, just a thicker hat. Again, if I didn't have the balaclava, I'd put this on when I get higher up, okay? Now, another little useful thing here, handkerchief. As we all know, when you go to the mountain, there's nearly always a wind. When it's windy, your nose tends to run, so it's always handy to have a handkerchief handy, right? Just a little tip. Okay, let's talk about feet. Right, so the first thing is, obviously, you need a good pair of boots, all right? Now, these are my go-to hill walking boots, okay? So year round. You know, if I'm going over very frozen wintry ground, I have a stiffer boot that I would use, but these are my go-to hill walking boots, right? They're Mindel, they're very, very good quality. Won't talk too much about it. Just don't make the mistake that I've made a couple of times where you buy a shoe size, like I'm a size 8 in a shoe, thought I'd get away with an 8 on a bigger boot, feet swell, had to change them. See, these are 9, so just a little tip, if you're 8 in a shoe, go for 9. Always go one size up because your feet will swell throughout the day, alright? Now, I thought I could get away with it because the last boot I bought was actually quite a roomy boot in an 8. Still didn't work. Always go up a size, right? Just make sure you look after them. Now, what I do not recommend is, for hill walking, as you can see, these are a leather boot. Do not get non-leather boots. You know, the cloth sort of nubuck leather with the Gore-Tex lining. Been there, done it. Once the membrane, the Gore-Tex membrane will eventually break down, especially where the boot flexes, water gets in, right? So I'm just sharing this with you. My philosophy is stick with the leather boot and make sure that you treat it once a week and keep the leather in top condition for waterproofness, all right? So that's the boots. Pair of socks. The other thing about socks is stick to the same sock all the time. So people talk about breaking a boot, you have to break in socks as well. These are a wool sock that I use for winter, not too thick. I do not believe in wearing thick socks when you're on the march, when you're on the walk. Why? Your feet are just going to overheat. That's the bottom line. So if I was going backpacking, I keep a thick socks for nighttime. But when you're on the move, you don't have to dress with thick clothing, and that still applies for socks as well. Okay. Talcum powder for the feet. Always sprinkle a bit in the boot. All it does is it absorbs the sweat. Not too much of it. It absorbs the sweat, and what you're trying to do really is keep your feet dry. Dry feet tend not to blister. If your feet get wet, whether through sweat or water, they go soft. Okay. If they go soft and you're marching a long distance, especially over hard surface like a road, for example, or a trail, you're going to get blisters, right? So it's all part of the craft of trying to keep your feet right. Gloves. So I suppose when I've got different glove systems here, and the first thing I do is I say, well, what's the weather going to be? So if it's going to be wet, I have a default pair of gloves. These are sealskin gloves. They're very expensive, well over €100 for these things. So they're waterproof, they're warm, you've got dexterity, you can work in them. So these are an all-in-one glove, right? So I've tested them a number of times in very wet conditions. They work, and that is surprising because I've gone through lots of different types of gloves over the years, and I was a firm believer that no glove is fully waterproof, but so far these things are actually working in wet conditions, right? So these would be just my go-to. Put them on. It's raining. That's it. Maybe if the rain stops later on the walk, I'll change them out, but just keep them on. They really do work. Now, if it's dry, but let's say just cold, so what I would do is I'd start off with the car with the lightest pair of gloves. These are like a liner, a very thin liner glove, merino wool. Start off and try and do most of the ascent just in these, okay? If it gets a bit higher, hands getting cold, next thing then is I've got these lightweight windproof mitts, all right? And these are very, very good because they're light, they're windproof, and they're highly breathable. They don't sweat your hands. And also, they're still very good dexterity because they're thin. So you can still do stuff. And the great thing about them is you can whip them up in a second, do something, and then put them back on. So these are a great bit of kit, all right? Who makes them now? I don't know. Let's say Windstopper, right? So that's must be the technology. But anyway, they're an excellent glove if you can get them. Let's see who's written on the back here now. High Gear, right? Again, I have these years and years. High Gears seems to be the name of the company, but they really do work. Now, if the liner with these is still not working, I have a small, tight pair of woolen gloves that I can just whip on, and then for windproofness, I can just put on the windproof mitt, okay? And it doesn't matter how cold it gets, once it's dry, I'm going to be nice and toasty in here. All right. So the other thing about gloves, you don't want too big bulky gloves because it can be hard to get on and off. Okay. So that's the the glove system. If I was another option is, of course, if I was doing more technical work with an ice axe or whatever, I might want to wear a thick glove like that, which is more of an alpine winter glove. Again, the option exists. Oh, if you're going to get a pair of these, make sure they're loose, because if they're loose, you can put on the thin liner and then put your hand in. Okay, so that's gloves. All right. Hats, gloves, and I always keep a little bag at the top of my haversack, and a Ziploc bag. Pop them in. Keeps everything nice and dry. All right. Underwear. Okay. Not a big fan of the long johns, the big long things, because what I find is around the groin area they tend to slip down and they're not as comfortable. So the tracksuit bottoms, the Ron Hill tracksuit bottoms that I showed you at the beginning, they are absolutely perfect. They fit really well. They don't slip down, and I just wear a pair of these under. So they're what are they? They're low alpine. They're just a pair of shorts. They're really comfortable, and they wick a lot of sweat away. Okay. Again, just on the legs, the lower legs, pair of gaiters, British Isles, lots of boggy ground. Really, as I would just say, almost essential if you're going to go off trail. Like, you know, just wear a pair of gaiters. Now, there's a number of benefits of these. One is if it's raining, you put them on, and you put your rain trousers over, and you've got like double protection from the rain from the knee down. Okay, that's one benefit. The other benefit obviously is when you're going through boggy areas, to protect your clothing from the knee down. Here's one benefit that maybe you haven't thought of, is that lots of deer in lots of mountainous areas, and they leave ticks in the vegetation. So if you're walking through the vegetation, one of the problems here is that a tick gets onto you, right, and you might pick up Lyme's disease or some other nasty disease like that, right? Gaiters, that's one of the side benefits of gaiters. Much more difficult for a tick to penetrate through that and get onto your skin. So protection against possibly Lyme disease. You do not want to get that, all right? Okay, so what else have we got? So eyewear, again, sunny day, pair of sunglasses, but what I find is, especially in the winter, there's nearly always going to be a wind. The problem about a cold wind is, cold wind goes into your face. What I find is that your eyes tend to water. So if you're doing map reading, you know, your eyes are watering. It just gets more difficult to see the compass and to actually do your job. So putting on something like this, you know, very, very cheap. I got these in a hardware store. Very, very cheap, and they do the job. So it just keeps the wind, the hail out of your eyes. Next level up, if it was like blizzard, hailstones, really nasty conditions, you know, I could choose to bring the full ski goggle thing. It's a bit of a tint in these, but one thing about these things is just to make sure that when you're wearing a balaclava, that there's a mouthpiece that you can breathe outwards, because if you cover your face with just cloth, it'll direct the hot air upwards, and these will fog up. So just a little tip for you. But these wouldn't wear these that often. You know, I'd want to be very, very severe. Very, very severe wind chill, hail, snow, and then I'd pop them on. Alright, so that's your goggles. Alright, now, so that's basically everything I wear. So the next phase here is, next question, what do you actually carry in your bag? Alright, so let's just talk about that. So the first thing is walking pole. Alright, so what I do is I only tend to bring one pole, and I usually hold it in my right hand. Just personal preference. I know some people use two. I like to keep one hand free, maybe for compass work. I don't want to. I want a bit of redundancy in my arms, right? So this is enough for me if I'm crossing some rough ground. It just gives me that third leg or bit of balance that I need. Another personal preference. Again, try it out yourself. I like to really extend out the pole, not necessarily to its full length, but I like a nice high pole. All right, it just feels better. My forearm is really parallel to the ground. Just feels better. It just feels like it gives better support. Just a personal preference. So that's your walking pole. All right. So pack, winter pack. So this baby here is my go-to. It's a really robust mountaineering pack. What I'm holding here is basically the maximum load for a winter day trip. All right. It's about 22 pounds. It would probably be about 17 pounds if I didn't bring crampons, helmet, and ice axe. All right. Again, critical. You don't want to be carrying too heavy loads because it's going to slow you down. You're going to get exhausted, especially if you're going to go technical climbing. Weight becomes critical. If you're just going for a walk, not as critical. All right. So, a couple of things about the haversack. When you go into the winter season, you need a strong mountaineering haversack. So I've been here in the past. Thinner, lighter. They tend to get torn. They tend to break down quicker. So I have a nice, really robust mountaineering. Bit heavier, but it does the job. All right. So a couple of things to note. Again, army trick. Any loose ends, any straps, tape them up. Don't have them flowing around in the wind, belch you in the eye. Okay. What else? Got a little reflector here because often in the winter, the final leg, maybe walk along the road in the dark back to the car. It's nice. Oncoming traffic, see a little luminous strip here. All right. So again, I don't want to get too bogged down. It's got the waistband, it's got the cross strap, it's got everything that you need. One good feature of this is, if you see the top lid, do you see? I'll just hold it up there now. That slopes away. So if you're wearing a helmet, this doesn't bang into the helmet. It slopes away. All right. Very handy feature. Okay, so let's just open up and see what we have in here now. I'm going to have to go quite quickly through this. So first thing I keep handy is my drink. So this is a litre. It's a mixture of orange juice. I put a bit of salt in it for electrolyte and water. All right. So this is my go-to drink. Don't be shy about stopping often and drinking. Right. Very important. Gives me a bit of carbohydrate. Keeps me hydrated. Don't bring too much. But that's a litre there, and that's my go-to. If it's very, very cold and you're worried about freezing, turn it upside down, put a sock over it, and it'll freeze from the top down. So, you know, you're always going to have access to the fluid. So that's my drink. Keep it handy. Platypuses, not for the winter. Got caught out there in Ben Nevis one time. Platypus, the whole thing just froze solid. Had no fluids for the day. So that was the end of that, all right? Next thing, helmet. Keep it at the top. You do your walk in, you get to the base of the climb or the technical part of the walk. You decide to put your crampons on, get the ice axe out. So keep it at the top, keep it handy. This thing here is just a standard helmet. You know, standard rock climbing helmet. Can be adjusted for volume if you're wearing a hat. All right, so that's that. Now, what else have we got here? You can see my ice axe there at the side, just stored away at the side. Pop it out when I need it. Now this is a technical climbing axe, but a walking axe will be longer, but I still find I can still use this because in Ireland we don't get winter conditions that often, so I haven't invested in a walking axe. But if I need an axe for walking, this still does the job. If I slipped on a slope, this would still arrest me. You still deploy the same skills, right? So that's your ice axe carried on the side. Now, yeah, just one more feature, a little seat, okay? Little insulated seat, tied on with a lace. Stop for a cup of tea, put it on a rock, keeps you nice and dry. You don't want to get your butt wet or cold, all right? So that's that. So just forgive me now if I start galloping through because they're 28 minutes and I want to try and keep this under maybe 35, 40 minutes. Okay, so what's in here? So at the top, crampons, right? So carry your crampons in a bag because they're going to tear your haversack. You know, so just protect the stuff that lies around it. So crampons, keep them handy. All right. Again, they're for walking. I have two sets of crampons, one for walking and one for technical climbing. They're articulated. Another day's work talking about crampons. Right. Going out, very severe conditions, a very long day. I want more fluid, so I carry a hot flask of hot water. All right. There's nothing better. You're out for 6, 7, 8 hours, wind, rain, you just stop halfway, warm yourself up, have a cup of tea. Don't always bring it. If it's a shorter walk, milder conditions, probably just leave it behind, right? Bit of insulation around it, again, just keeps it warm for longer, but a godsend if the weather's bad and you get cold. Boom. Okay, next thing up is the food bag. I just keep it in a dedicated little bag, all right? So depends, you know, bring snacks, bars. I have a little noodle thing there that add hot water if I want to go. That sometimes I leave it behind. cup of soups, sandwiches, bars, nuts, whatever. That's another day's work. But don't bring too much, just bring enough, okay? And what I also at the bottom of the bag, I keep an emergency, small little extra rations, couple of bars, just in case you get delayed or cut out. So that's your rations. Right, so nav kit, compass, okay, pacing beads. You may not always need these. Silver compass is the best, okay? Silver compass is the best. Map, all right. Keep it open on the area you're going to visit. Have a nice, pop it into your pocket. You know, this is all about good admin. You don't be wasting time rooting down trying to find the map. It should have a dedicated spot. Whip it out, put it back in. All right. So that's map, compass, pacing beads. What do we got? Okay, so phone, car key, electronic items, small little Ziploc, keep them dry. Phone, what I do is turn off the phone, preserve the battery, okay? I do not carry a battery charger at the moment, but I'm definitely looking into some sort of a recharging pack, especially in an emergency situation, and I want to recharge my batteries. Okay, so what have we got? This is my small little first aid kit. Again, couple of plasters, couple of painkillers, couple of safety pins, very minimalistic. I think I've got some water treatment tablets in there as well. Again, I can talk about it another day. I'm just not into carrying big heavy first aid kits because, you know, what I'm thinking is I get a headache, get a toothache, cut my finger, you know, I get a pain of some kind, I want a painkiller, get myself down off the hill. So that's all I do, all right? So next thing, I'm into my kind of main refill bag, which I'll show to you in a minute. So obviously British Isles, Ireland, England, Scotland. Look, all the gear you need to keep dry, make sure it's in refuse sacks, right? I go belts and braces too. They're quite good quality. I don't want my gear getting wet. So first up, again, I have an emergency coat. So this is a full alpine synthetic jacket, right? And I only carry this really for emergencies. Sometimes I have stuff for a cup of tea. I might whip it on over all my layers to keep warm. But it's essentially carried for emergencies. Now, little story. Had a mishap in Scotland. We're on a multi-pitched climb in winter, and we had a bit of a mishap. I'll explain the details again sometime. But we got caught on a ledge for about 5 hours, and it was really cold, really windy, and we were just static, right? And I popped on this jacket, and I won't say I was as snug as a bug, but I was warm enough. And it really did the job. So I'm not going to really go into the details about it, but just if you're going to bring a jacket, make sure that it's not feathered down, right? You need a synthetic fill. That's the key, synthetic, and make sure that you have a hood as well. All right. So this is like, it's a big ass coat, but it does, you know, compress down, and it does the job for me. Now, what have we got here? So little emergency bag. So my little kind of emergency bits and bobs in here. Whistle, really loud whistle. Tree long, tree short, tree long, SOS, emergency, attract attention. Okay, spare bootlaces, old army trick. Happened to me once or twice. You never know when a bootlace is going to snap. Keep spares. Very small, don't weigh anything, worth carrying. Okay, bungee, bit of cord, repairs, bits and bobs, you never know. Okay, waterproof notebook. I don't use it normally. Emergency situation, grid reference, name, helping out. Good for admin if you had to actually do a job or help somebody, or, you know, call the emergency services and get some notes and details together before you call them. Space blanket, just an extra little thing to wrap around yourself, keep you warm. Extra rations, just a couple of bars wrapped up in a piece of paper so that I can't get in and sort of raid them, kept at the bottom of the bag. Alright, little carabiner, might be handy for something. I always carry one. So little stuff sack to keep that stuff in. So again, bottom of the bag, emergency, you never know. So what else have we got here? Head torch, make sure you charge it before you go. Okay, this baby emergency shelter, right? So this is what they call, some people refer to it as a bothy bag. Where is it? It's Vango. This is a 4-man. It's basically a lightweight tent without poles. You throw it over yourself. It's got a little window to look out. You draw a cord, you pull it tight, and it gets the wind off you, the rain off you, the snow off you, traps a body of air. Again, primarily for emergency situations. Makes a huge impact. Remember I said to you before at the beginning, if you're going to carry something for emergency, make sure it's going to have a big impact, and this has a huge impact. So the idea is something happens, you get delayed, you go static, you're running along, you twist your knee, you're going to help somebody else. Get yourself, get your buddies, get the person you're trying to help into this, trap that body of air, get your extra layers on, get organised, figure out what you need to communicate to the emergency services. Stay calm, no flap, no mistakes. Emergency. This is a 4-man. I think they come in 2-man as well. So a bit big for maybe just a solo walk. Wouldn't go anywhere without it. Okay, I think we're coming to near the end. What else have we got in here? We've got, yeah, so last line of defense for your hands. Hands get wet, get cold, very severe conditions. I've got the full mitts. So remember, mitts are always warmer than gloves. Keep your fingers together. And I also got a spare little liner glove. So put these on, pop them into the mitts, boom. Okay, your hands will warm up again. Emergency balaclava, like if you get caught out in really, really severe conditions like a blizzard, you can pop this on. It's windproof. It covers most of your face. You can put your goggles over, so you get like total protection. It's a really good bit of kit. It's breathable as well, windproof, and it's warm. But I rarely use this. It had to be very bad to put it on. Okay guys, I'd say that's probably about it. What else we got? There's nothing else here to show you. Done the haversack. Yeah, okay. So there's your liners. Oh yeah, spare socks. Again, army trick. Always have a spare sock, because it happened to be a few times, you know, you look at a pool, you say, that's not particularly deep, and you go in and it goes halfway up to your knee and then your feet are wet. Alright? Stop, change your socks, because once your feet get wet like that, they're going to get soft, you're much more prone to blisters, plus it's miserable. So I always carry socks. Alright? And that's it, that's the liner. So guys, that's about it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Again, just to recap, what was the purpose of today? Quick run through all of the gear that I carry and wear for a winter trip to the mountains. A day trip, right? So a day trip, Scotland, it could be the Swiss Alps, it could be Ireland, it could be anywhere where there's winter conditions. Or, as I said, I mean, if it's not like full winter conditions, but still in the winter season, obviously I'll be leaving the ice axe behind. I'll be leaving certain bits of kit behind. So, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. It'd be great if you could leave some comments, like, subscribe, and I'm looking at maybe doing some other videos going forward, maybe not as long as this one, and we look at some of these, some of the aspects of being, I suppose, a competent mountain user. That's what we're about here. What is competency when you go to recreate on the mountains? And that's what and it's just really what I'm trying to do is impart all the tips and tricks that I've learned over the years, and hopefully it'll benefit you on the hill, and safety always comes first. Thanks guys, talk to you the next time.